So they review the things. So now I've got they call it a vascular surgeon. So he starts explaining the venous system. He's like, you've got clots in the part of your circulatory system that returns the blood to your heart, which is much better than the ones that, service the body. And I'm like, yeah, I can see that. And so he's drawing me a little map of my body and, how the circulatory system and the vascular, everything works and all this stuff. And I have a very rudimentary anatomy knowledge, but I was picking up what he was putting down. So he's telling me all this stuff, and he's like, and so another doctor comes in and all this stuff, and they do ultrasound down my legs to check my femoral artery and all this stuff, to go along with the CAT scan and everything. And so they ultimately come in and they're like, have you had a colonoscopy? And I'm like, I have not. And oddly enough, when I met with my doctor last week, I said, we were just talking about the fact that they lowered the age, and then I was of the age that I needed to get one. So we were going to schedule one when I have my physical here in a couple months. She's like, well, we're going to go ahead and do one. And I'm like, in the hospital? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, in the ER, because I'm still waiting on a bed, because it's like, I don't know, 10 o'clock maybe, I'd been there for a couple hours, by the time all these people came to talk to me. And I was like, okay. Yeah, I mean, we'll do what we do. We're going to do. And so they say, we're going to do an endoscopy from the mouth, down, and then the colonoscopy from the ass up. And I'm like, all right, I said, does that meet in the middle? And they're like, no. The small intestine is way too long for that, but we can get a lot of it. And really, you don't ever have really any problems in your small intestine. It's always large intestine or esophageal or whatever. I was like, all right, well, we'll handle it. And so the nurse comes back in. I was like, so I have to prep. I love the prep, right? The word that we use for the prep for a colonoscopy, which we all know means to just clean out your system. And I'm like, so we got to prep for this. And like, yeah. And the nurse was cool. He was like, yeah, they said they're going to order that to start between 4 and 6 p.m. And I look up at the wall, and I'm like, well, it's only like 10:30. I'm like, surely I'll be in a bed by then, right? And so we get there. And so we have a lab. I mean, not a lab, but a nurse change sometime in the afternoon. And a new nurse comes in, and she's like, and we're talking about it. And I'm like, so now it's like 2:30, and they've taken blood. I got 2 IVs running. They've got me on heparin. They got me on a blood thinner to kind of dissolve the blood around the clots and all that stuff. And so I'm sucking down a couple bags of IV fluid, and then my other arm's sucking down heparin. So I'm all plunged up with that. Of course, I got the EKG stuff and all this stuff. So I'm wired up to like all this crap. And then they're checking blood on me like every 3-4 hours. And everything's going well. All the blood tests came back. It was doing what it was supposed to do and all this stuff. So I'm basically just sitting around, just being a pincushion, waiting on a bed, right? And so 4 o'clock rolls around, and the nurse comes in. She's like, all right, so we got to start this thing here. And I'm like, so here's the deal, all right? And the nurse assistant happened to be with her. And I said, here's the deal. I was like, there's 2 public restrooms in this ER, right? And that services, let's say, 30 rooms. And 30 rooms, 30 patients, on top of all the visitors, there's 50, 60 people using 2 bathrooms. I was like, and the bathroom from where I was sitting on my bed, right? Because I was in a room, thank God. I was probably 30 yards away from the bathroom. So I said, what happens if we start this prep, and then the prep begins its thing, and I got to make it to the 30-yard away bathroom, and I get down there, and it's busy, I got to wait, and there's no waiting for that, that kind of thing. She's like, well, how about this? How about we just bring you a bedside toilet? And I said, I don't like the sound of bedside toilet. And she's like, well, it's better than not being able to get into a bathroom. I'm like, you got me there. I said, okay. And so now I'm starting to get nervous, and I don't get nervous. I really don't. I don't fret things. I don't get scared of things. I'm pretty I've seen a lot of shit in my life. And so I don't get bothered by a lot very easily. And so, but this has got me a little bothered, because they bring that little toilet in, and I'll put a picture of it here at the end of this video if I can remember to do so. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, well, this isn't good. And so the nurse assistant goes in the cabinet, and she gets one of these little pans. You've all seen these little hospital pans. They're about 3.5 inches deep. They're probably 13 inches long, and maybe 8, 9, 10 inches wide. And she crams this thing down, lifts the seat of the little bedside toilet and crams it down. It obviously isn't meant to go in this toilet because it's got like an octagonal shape to it, and she's cramming a rectangle down into it. So the sides are bending, and I'm sitting there going, I don't know if the capacity of this pan is what we need for this bedside toilet. At one point I said to her, I was like, my truck is out in the parking lot, and I know for a fact I've got a 5-gallon Home Depot bucket, and I feel like that would be a lot better than this tray that y'all have put in this bedside toilet that I'm, as time ticks on, more and more scared of, happening and all this. And at one point I said to both of them, I looked at them dead in the face, and I said, I just want to apologize to both of you for what all three of us are going to have to experience here shortly and all this. And they laughed, and I did not. And I did inside, but I didn't at the same time. So now it's after 4 o'clock. So I'm supposed to take 4 pills and an entire, it had to be like 12, 14 fluid ounces of basically Miralax is what they called it. So I had to take 4 pills and this entire bottle mixed into Gatorade, two Gatorades. And I had to do one between 4 and 6, and then the other half of the bottle at 2 a.m. So there was going to be around 2. And I was like, okay, surely by 2 a.m. I'll have my own room and all this. Well, so she's like, I tell you what, we'll wait till 6 o'clock, to get this process started. And I said, thank you. Because I'm looking at this bedside toilet, and I was like, I just don't even understand how this is going to work. I was like, I don't even have an extra pan. Like, what if this thing, and not only that, but when you're sitting in this thing, I'm thinking to myself, there's going to be parts of me that I'm going to have to keep up to not, it's this deep, you know what I mean? If you know what I'm saying, you know what I'm saying. So part 3, uno momento.